Hi, this is Amy Miles. My project is called Sysout to See. It's a reservation project. I want to give you a little tour and kind of show how I've set this up. My classes are Validate, Person, Reservation, and Boat. I wanted to start with the Validate class. I had found that I was validating input, whether kind of for the person attributes and the reservation attributes, and I realized I was validating the same thing. So I thought, well, I'll make a special validation class, and then that way I can use those methods to validate any input. So here we're validating yes or no using regular expressions, and the input needs to be lowercase yes or no. And then I've got validate numbers only, 0 through 9. And then I've got down here, validate phone number. It removes all special characters, and then make sure there's 10 digits there. And then those methods are what I use in the driver to make sure that the input's correct. All right, so in our person class, we have name, age, and then considerations, and then considerations text. That's the input of the special considerations. This is a flag that's set to false. In the driver, if the input is that there are special considerations for a person, that is then set to true. And then what that does, it will get the special considerations. And if that flag is true, it's going to print that out at the end. It's going to put name and age and then whatever special consideration that person has. Otherwise, it just does name and age. In the reservation class, my default constructor, I have a linked list of a party with the person objects, and then a count. Every time a person is added, that count is incremented, a phone number, and a reservation name. Now, down when you create a reservation object, this is the default one, but if you create one, actually, I don't use this one here. In the program, I use this one here. When you add the phone number, it's actually going to format it to this format after it validates it in the driver. Let me go down here. So it creates a linked list, takes the last name, and then sets the count to 0. So add person, there's where it increments that count variable. And then here's the format phone number. It's going to take out all the special characters, and then remember, it was validated in the driver, so then it's if it's valid, it's passed through here. So it's going to make sure it takes out the special characters, and then it's going to format it. And then let me go down to the print. So for every party or every reservation, excuse me, it's going to print the reservation name, the phone number, and then it's going to loop through and print every person from the person class there. It's going to do that format there with their special considerations if there is any. Okay, so then the boat class. Now, let me go up here. So it has every boat has a name and a capacity. That's the maximum of people it can hold, and that's the in my driver I have that you can change that. So you don't have to put in so many names to see the features of the program. And then there's a linked list here of reservation objects, and then a variable of remaining. And as reservations are added, this amount gets decremented. It starts with the value of the capacity of the boat. So there's my default constructor, and here's my constructor that I use in the driver. So put in the boat name and the capacity, and then it sets those variables and creates the linked list. Let me go down to, now I have 2 exceptions in my program, a no capacity exception and boat full exception. But in my driver, I use this method, check capacity, before I even make a reservation object. So essentially, these exceptions are unreachable, because if it wasn't going to fit, it wasn't even going to get that far. So the only way it makes a reservation is if it fits. So here we've got, so if it's not full and if the reservation fits, it adds it, and then it decrements the remaining variable right there. And then when the program's done, it's going to print out the manifest of the boat name. And then if there aren't any objects, it's going to print there are no reservations. If there are reservations, it's going to loop through and print out the format of the reservation with each person on there. And it's going to concatenate a string there. Let me go through. I don't know if you want me to run through something. I'll just run through a couple things and like put in invalid information. Oh, I could show you that. I do have my JUnit. I do like 32. I did test for everything, made sure everything I put in invalid and valid and everything. So I've got quite a few tests there. So let me make sure this doesn't run a test. Okay, so let me just put in one reservation and show you. If I put in that there's 3 people in the party and I've got the capacity set at 2, it's going to already say cannot accommodate this party, and then it's going to go ahead and print out the manifest, but there are no reservations in it. So there's that kind of feature. Let me do this again. Let me change it. Well, I don't even have to change it really to show you. Let me run it again, and I'll put in 2 reservations. And then how many people in the party? Let's say 2. And let me show you if I put in a 7-digit phone number, it's going to say not valid. Put in 10. Name of the passenger, age, and then let me show you invalid input, a capital Y on that. It's going to say no. So I'm going to put in the valid, and then I'm going to add the special consideration. So I'll put in wheelchair, and then it's going to get the name of the other passenger and the age, and then any special considerations I'll put no. And then it's going to loop through and get the name or the next party. So I'll put in 2. Last name of the reservation. We'll just do the same names because to make it quick. Oh, well, there we go. Not valid input. Okay, so then it printed out both reservations, the manifest, and then this reservation, and there's the formatted phone number and the special considerations there. Let me walk you through the driver and kind of show what goes on there. So here's the capacity that you can change if you want. I create a boat object, and that is with the name of the boat and then the maximum capacity. And then I have a validator object, so I can use those methods, a scanner to get input, and then I ask for how many reservations, and that validates for numbers only. And then once a valid input is in, it changes it to an integer, and then that controls the loop to ask for each reservation information. So how many people in the party? So it's going to make sure you put in numbers and then change to an integer. It's going to check the capacity right off the bat. If there is room, it's going to proceed. So last name of the reservation, it's going to get the phone number, it's going to validate the phone number, and then if all of this is valid, it's going to make the object with the last name and the phone number, and then it's going to use that how many people are in the party to control the loop to get each person's information. So the name, the age, and all the inputs validated there, and then if any special circumstances. And if there are, well, here's your validation for that, and then here's to set the flag to true, so those will print out if at the end, and then enter the special considerations, get that input, and then once that's done, it adds the person. Then here we try to add, once this is done, it adds the reservation. Now again, these are pretty much unreachable because of all of that, the validation right there. So it adds the reservation, and it cannot accommodate the size of party if way up here in the beginning, checking the capacity right there. And then when it's all done, it displays the manifest and we close the scanner. So that's the basic setup of the program. I want to talk strengths and weaknesses. So strengths, I was able to get, I think, a really good program here. I'm pretty proud of it. I ended up getting all the input validation. I got sick, had to have surgery, so I had to change the scope of this project quite a bit. Now, one of the things I did way in the beginning of the class is I started thinking about my final project in the very beginning. The first day of class, I put notes down in the back of a notebook and kind of played around with different ideas. And then as we learned different data structures and skills, I would kind of, think about that in my mind. So before I even coded, I had thought about a lot of how my the makeup of my program and the classes I was going to have, and kind of how I was going to do stuff, and how to validate and things like that. One of the kind of funny things I had done is it was a great learning experience. I got stuck on something so bad, and I think it was in the the reservation. No, it was in the display the manifest. I could not get that to give me the information I wanted. And I normally, as I code, I test everything. And what I realized is I kind of got lazy and I wasn't doing my unit tests as I made these, as I was coding. And so I went ahead and did my unit test, and it showed me that I was getting the proper information. I had an error in my driver, and honestly, I don't know what I did wrong in the driver, but somehow it wasn't compiling correctly. It was really interesting. But anyway, so taught me a lesson. Always do your unit testing and check that first, because it just might be the driver that's not working. As for weaknesses, well, I ended up getting to put in my input validation. I didn't think I was going to get to do that because I haven't had much time with recovery to even sit and code and do my stuff. But I ended up getting all my ancillary, my report done, and my projects, all of the things I needed to get complete. I don't have a sort on here, so I know I'm going to get dinged for that. But everything else I got in my Java doc, I made sure all of my Java doc was correct and everything is commented. This was a fun project. I had taken a little tutorial on GitHub, and I wanted to find one that pertained to the situation of a student working on their own project. A lot of tutorials talk about how you use it, like when you're out in the workplace or when you're working on a project with other people and branching and things like that. Well, I wanted to understand the concepts of working on my own project and pushing and to the remote repo. And I did a great tutorial from W3 Schools, and it was perfect because I actually had to use it. I had to go back to a previous commit because I had put actually my Java doc in the wrong file. I wasn't sure, wasn't experienced enough to know exactly what to take out or what I should do. So that was interesting. That was kind of fun. Well, actually it wasn't fun, but I'm glad I did it. So those are my takeaways, I guess. Learning how to change the scope of the project from time-wise, and making sure when I did have time, I had the bones of my project done. I stayed on track with our stand-ups, and that helped because I didn't foresee, having to have surgery. So that was perfect. I was able to complete the project and change scope, regroup and get it done. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I have little instructions on how to run it and a link to all my stuff, and I hope you have a good summer. Thanks.